Ready and go. As soon as we have oil coming up out of there, we know the engine's charged. Now this is like you went into the grocery store and you come back out. Let's see what happens. I just knew there was a way to fix this. Uno momento. It's a secret. Shh. I'm super excited about the second part of our video on the 6.7 Powerstroke oil issue. Now listen, this is going to be so confusing to you. You'll be like, oh, what are they doing? You got to watch the first video first, and that'll explain to you why I'm doing this testing and what we're doing here. So if you haven't done that, go back and watch the first video first, and then come watch this one. And what we're going to do here now is we've got this 6.7 Powerstroke, one of many that we're doing, and let's talk about that. I've got a few comments, quite a few comments on this, hundreds of them, and a lot of them are, you know, good, how could they do this, you know, some of the questions I'm asking, but a lot of guys are like, oh, there's no problem with that motor. And I'm wondering, how many motors have you rebuilt? You know, I do 5 to 10 of these 6.7s a month, and I'm finding a lot of spun main bearings, a lot. Spun main bearings in the housing, and the only way a main bearing spins is, you know, lack of lubrication. It grabs the housing and it spins the bearing around. I mean, that's it. It's not rocket science. And I'm seeing that. Cam bearings being torched out of them, and same deal. You know, you grab a cam bearing, it's because you didn't have lack of lubrication, and the cam journal grabbed the babbitt on the bearing and spun it in the bore. So what we're going to do here, this is a sim test machine. What this sim test machine does is it spins up the motor at different RPMs for testing before we actually install them in our vehicles. It's not a dyno, it's not a live hot run, it's a cold run, but it's going to be able to tell me what I need to know about what I'm about to test here. So referring back to the old, or the first video, our issue is the extended flow of the oil before it actually gets to the main bearing and the rear cam journal to charge up the hollow cam and then charge all the bearings inside that cam. Before this camshaft gets any oil out of these holes, it's got to charge through all that pipe system that I showed you in the first video. It pumps up to this camshaft, and this journal has got 3 little holes in it. This is the journal that fills this whole camshaft. These holes don't lubricate the cam bearings until all that oil flow has happened in the pan, the oil cooler, the oil filter housing, up into the block, and then fill this empty cam up. What we're about to do here is I want to see on a fresh oil change, meaning we've got this motor totally drained now. We filled up the oil filter, so we have filled up the oil filter like at Jiffy Lube or something, you know, that's filled up the oil filter. But the pan's been drained, and now we filled it up and we're about to start it. We're going to set this timer, and here's where we'll know when we have oil finally up on the engine. This is our hole that charges the turbo, sits here. So as soon as this is pressurized, that tells me that my camshaft and everything in there is full up. And we're going to find out how long it is until I get a good stream of oil pumping out of that housing. Let's check it out. Okay, I want to show you something here in the machine. This is the oil pan. Now I'm pumping oil. You can see it's pumping over the side there, so I've got a constant flow of oil, and the pickup tube is down in that. So that's like I've just poured, if an oil change shop did this, see how that's full up oil and it just keeps pumping and pumping and full. And I filled up the oil filter, and I got a Ford Motorcraft oil filter on it. So now we're going to crank this up like you were cranking the truck to start it, and we're going to wait and see how long it takes us to get here. I'm going to tell him to hit the start button, and we'll start spinning this motor, and as soon as it starts to spin, you're going to hear a beep. It's going to wait a second, but as soon as it starts to spin, I'll hit the stopwatch. We're waiting to see how fast the oil comes up here. All right, go ahead and hit the start. And there we go. 8 seconds. Okay, so now what we've done is we simulated, we let the motor sit all night and drain, and we're gonna see, is it any different, how long it takes to get oil up here to our telltale hold, the turbo pedestal, or is it the same as it was with an oil change? I would think that it's gonna be probably pretty close to the same, but let's see. And okay, Joey, go ahead and hit the start button, and as soon as it starts spinning, I'll hit the start. Here we go. Pretty dang close to the same. My thumb is, it's 7-8 seconds. When this truck's just been sitting all night before I get oil pressure up to the turbo pedestal. That's a long time. Now I'm going to check it right now with it only sitting for, a couple minutes. So now this is like you went into the grocery store and you come back out. Let's see what happens. So I'll hit it when it starts to spin. Here we go. So 6.5 seconds. This motor drains, man. These passages, they just drain. Now, we could do the math. And here's the math I'd do. We're spinning this thing at 500 RPM, and it takes 8 seconds. How many revolutions of that crank has happened in 7-8 seconds dry? And the camshaft bearings. Now I know they got a little bit of a film on there, but remember that film's being blown away, if you watch my first video, by a shot of air. Because we're draining all those piping systems out and we're filling them with air. And whenever you introduce air into a hydraulic system, it's being compressed, and when it's finally released out of an orifice, it blows the oil out of the way. Not a good thing. I feel like the Cheshire Cat. I got this grin on my face because I just knew there was a way to fix this, and I think we found it. So I've shown you in this video, this second series of videos, I've shown you how long it takes, about 8 seconds, on an oil change with a full oil filter. I don't even want to try this since I'm building this motor for a customer. With a full oil filter, and then cranking on how long does it take for the oil to get up to the turbo pedestal, which basically is telling me the rest of the motor is charged with oil. It's 8 seconds. And then what we did is we just turned it off for a moment for about, I think it was less than an hour, like going in to go grocery shopping or something, like come out again and then start it. It was basically 7 seconds. I mean, it didn't really make that much of a difference. So I've installed a little fitting that I've designed in the motor, and I'm going to crank on it now. It's been sitting, and I want to see it now. How long does it take to get oil pressure up to my turbo pedestal? Because what I'm trying to fix here is all that passageway that I showed you in the first video, all that oil draining out of that motor. I don't think it's a good thing, because like I said, I'm finding a ton of spun bearings, main bearings. I'm not finding rod bearings, main bearings, spun in these motors. So let's crank this up, hit our stopwatch and see what we got. Okay, so we're gonna hit the start button, and as soon as the engine starts to spin, you'll hear a beep, beep, beep again before it actually starts spinning. I'll hit this timer and we'll see how many seconds it is now. As soon as it started, it didn't lose any oil pressure, but it didn't really build the pressure till 4 seconds. Let's just try it again. I'm going to reset it. I mean, see, we got oil already. And as soon as that thing picks up, yeah. I'm not hitting on my button as good as I am, but you can see that I haven't lost. I'm not draining the oil out of this motor. You can see as soon as this thing starts to spin, I'm not draining. It takes a second or two before it gets up to speed like it did on the other, but I mean, bam, I got oil right there. I'm turning that motor at less than 150 RPM. And I've got buku amounts of oil in there. It's not draining out. Now, any smart guy out there, or gal, probably figured out what I did. And I'm thinking, for 50 bucks, maybe the manufacturer ought to think about that. I don't know, but we got a fix for it. And every motor I build, every monster engine I build, that's a division of Dave's Auto Center. My son started that business. We'll be doing this little trick in every one of our motors, and I'll bet you my motors last a whole lot longer than the manufacturer's long block, just for this one simple reason. What we're doing here is we're going to pull this pan off. Ready? Yeah. Whoop!
I think it needs serious.
Okay. It's a secret. The moral of this story is, this is what engine builders do. This is going to happen. A good engine builder is always going to find a way to make it better. That's why I do this. This is exactly why we do this. Every motor has an opportunity to make it a little better. That's our job. If that's not what you like doing, you're not a motor builder. Do something else.